We've all learned over the pandemic, if there's one thing, it's that you don't know what direction life is going to go. And so you're teaching her such wonderful strategies for being able to balance her world and her life. And when you have that down on paper and you see that for yourself too, you're back to feeling confident and comfortable.
Welcome to Go All In Show, my friend. This is Stant. I'm your host, and today I would love to welcome my friend here, Dr. Sarah Allen. She will share with us entrepreneur lesson here. If you want to become very successful, but you got to organize your life and your family. So, Dr. Sarah, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Oh my goodness. I'm excited for our conversation. So just let's jump right in. So, entrepreneur, solopreneur, right? I mean, you talk about a dream team, right? And how can we create that? How, like there's so many things, especially with the COVID too. We work at home. And many of us, the kids still home. So how can we organize that? It's like lead us from the beginning until the end.
Yes, yes. So I'm a pediatric neuropsychologist. So I'm all about brains and brain health, but I'm also about efficiency and effectiveness because I'm an entrepreneur myself. And so I was in the middle of COVID actually realizing that I needed some way to attend to my household and my kids in the same way that I was attending to my business. And you're right, over COVID, they clashed, right? They both
Mm-hmm.
you were thrown in and you had to do both together. And so what ended up being born from that for me was the understanding that when I leaned back on the neuroscience behind the brain, the things I'd studied for 15 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
I could be a better mom and a better entrepreneur.
Mm.
So I developed this plan, this little brain parenting plan, because I needed this guide to run my household as efficiently and effectively as I was running my business.
I love
And
it.
you mentioned dream team.
Yes.
That was one of the ways to do this, right? We have our dream teams at work, we have our assistants, or we have our
Right.
people that help us with the things that we need to do, specific tasks. And I think we forget that at home.
Yeah,
And whenever
totally.
I'm divorced, so I'm by myself with my kids or with my partner and with my kids, and then they go to another household and they
Yeah.
have another parent and partner there too. So things kind of go back and forth. So my dream team looks very different than somebody who is in a more nuclear family, or I was realizing there's grandparents, there's all
Yeah.
different kinds of blended families and blending families. And so we really needed something that could, again, efficiently and effectively address everybody in the household. And when you have a plan, it makes that so much easier.
No, I really agree with you. Like, I forgot also, like myself, I have a dream team for my business. And I just told my friend the other day, like, um, I know exactly what going to happen for my business, like each day and each week. I know what's the goal at the end of this month. But then I look at my personal life, it's like, oh shoot, I didn't have a game plan at all, or I wasn't serious about making that plan, and
Yes.
no wonder why is like crazy, right?
And it makes you feel unsettled. And we know from a brain based perspective, as an entrepreneur, when you feel settled and whole emotionally, physically, cognitively, you're going to perform better at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. We have all these plans at work, and then we get home, or we are home. We turn away from our computer in this particular case, and we realize things are a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
But the way that you get yourself confident as a parent and whole as a person is to have a plan in your personal life, just like you do in your
Mm-hmm.
business. And you're absolutely right. That's the thing that will help with that, because when we're not confident as parents and we're not confident as individuals, that's where we run into emotional issues personally, or behavior issues with
Yeah.
kids, because we're reacting, we're not being proactive, we're just
Mm.
reacting to things. And when our tolerance goes down as a parent, that's when we really run into some trouble. And so the plans, like you said, it kind of, when you sit back and realize it, you kind of think, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so putting it together And honestly, one of the ways to do it is just to identify the goals
Okay.
that you, just like you would at work. So I call it a glow and grow chart.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite tools from our growth mindset friends. And what you do is you just say, where am I glowing? Where am I really rocking life? And where do I need to grow? And it can be as simple as that. And you do it for yourself as an individual, because as parents, we often lose ourselves.
Right.
You know, we know who we are in business as entrepreneurs, but we don't know necessarily who we are at home all the time.
I know.
Who we are personally.
I feel like you're speaking to me today.
So once we do it for ourselves, then we do it for our children.
Right.
And then we do it for ourselves as parents. And so that really pulls through. It's kind of like SMART goals in business.
Yeah.
You know, this is how we start to pull through what our personal goals are for ourselves and our kids, all the way through to parenting. And then when you see your kids, or when you're looking at your kids, you're helping your children, you're pulling those 3 goals. And I would only recommend a couple, just like you do at work, you know, really target it. And so when something happens, you know exactly what your kids are working on.
Can you share with us a little bit the example of the 3 goals that you have for your kid and your family?
Yeah, so I can just give you an example. One of my kids, my son Carter, is 9 years old
Okay.
right now, and he is a spunky, passionate, ornery little boy.
Yeah.
And he has been working for years on emotion management, right? Because with that passion, with really strong highs comes some lows, and that's for any individual. So even as entrepreneurs, we realize this, right? Passionate people have highs and they also have lows, and they have to learn how to balance those things.
Right.
So for him, it started off with just learning how to control his emotions, learning how to regulate that feeling. And then it's learning how to express himself as well, and express and communicate, because his little brain works very differently than most people's in the world. And he'll tell you, I have a different little brain. My mommy says I have a different brain, you know, and he really does. And he loves that. It's just become who he is because it's been a highlight for him.
Right.
So now when he loses his stuff because, you know, he thinks somebody pushed him too hard in a game,
Okay.
physically pushed him too hard in a game, he would normally lash out back physically. But now, the other day, he came in and he walked in, and he actually had a bloody nose, because you know he had fallen in a game that he was playing, and he came home, and he was just, they're so mean to me, and they're hitting me, and they're punching me, and they're kicking me. And I said, well, what happened? And he explained the game. I said, oh, so do you think maybe you fell? You know, and he's like, you know what, Mom, I think maybe I did fall. And I said to him, you know what, though, I'm really, really proud of you. So instead of freaking out about the bloody nose and figuring out what's going on, I said, I'm really proud of you because you walked away. You left a situation that you weren't sure what to do about. Normally I would have gotten a call, oh, Carter hurt somebody, or he got so angry, I don't know why he got angry, and he didn't. He just left. And it's because of the targeted goal we had worked on with managing his emotions. And we could talk about that. And because we could talk about that, he could then start to build the next level of his skill, which is to say, you know what, Mom, don't yell at them, please. I don't think they did anything wrong. I think I just thought they did. And so next time, maybe I could think about how they were thinking and feeling instead of just how I was thinking and feeling.
I love it.
I was like, oh, this is like,
yeah, I mean,
we could all do that personally. It'd be great.
Right. He's 9 and he's learning this early right now. I mean, imagine growing as an adult, you know, as a man. He's going to have so many tools that he can use.
I hope so. And I think that's the whole goal to this kind of plan and program is insight. You know, you will not have change without insight.
Right.
You need to know this. If you look at the history of therapy, psychodynamic to cognitive behavioral and everything in between, the one theme that's consistent is gaining insight into why you act certain ways so that you can then change them. And we often skip over that, Bo, that teaching of why are you thinking and feeling certain ways. We start to learn it as entrepreneurs now. You know, there's so many life coaches and such wonderful connection tools and mindfulness and these kinds of things that we use in our business.
Right.
Imagine, like you said, what would happen if you use these at home with your kids really young? Because I think the first time I ever saw myself on paper was maybe a resume or college application or something, or even as I got into a business of my own, you really have to kind of check your own emotions and you start learning your reactions, or maybe management, you learn that. if we start this really, really young with our kids, imagine the next generation of these beautiful little brains. And I do encourage, you hear me say little brains a lot, but that's how I see kids, is all little brains, right?
Right.
And so if we can build these little brains up, like you said, imagine what they would be as adults, these wonderful humans.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned about a dream team, like how what the dream team is included and how can we creating that?
Great question. So I talk a lot about this in my book, The Dream Team,
Okay.
because I realized as I was writing it and as I was meeting with all my parents that everybody has some version of a dream team. And it's if you think you don't have one, I can almost guarantee you do, or you
Right.
need one. And so as if you're a single parent, that you don't have a partner necessarily, that might be your dream team, but a neighbor, a coworker, a coach, a teacher of your kids. You need other people in your world to support you and your child for a couple reasons. One, you're not the only influence your child is going to have. So if they say it takes a village, it really takes a village to make sure that you're keeping an eye on your kids, that everybody's working on the same goals with your kids. And this could be the dance instructor or your kid's coach. These are all part of this dream team that you can create. But you also need one for yourself. You have it in business. Put it in your personal life. It could be a therapist. It could be another coach. It could be, like I said, a teacher or a neighbor, somebody that when your kids hit your buttons, and I've said this before, but our kids are we're passionate about our kids, and they are passionate about pushing our buttons. That's their job, right? They know it.
They are.
So if you don't have your dream team where you can take that breath and go and say, okay, I really need a little support here, because I have my own dream team. For my kids, I can help other people because I'm a little more objective, but with my own kids, I still need my dream team, to talk through these things. And the reason is a brain-based perspective, and we can use this for our kids too. So I personify parts of the brain. So you have part of your brain in the middle called the amygdala. I call her Amy G because she's just so emotional. So we have Amy G, and then we have the frontal lobe, which I call Franny. So we have Franny and Amy G, and they're in a constant back and forth. Amy G's job is to make us feel very strongly about things, because the stronger we feel about things, the more we remember them and the more important we are. We can't remember everything in our world, right? We can only remember things that are important. And the way we figure out what's important is by using Amy G. So she's a good thing, but she also gets out of control, right?
Love
and that's where Franny comes in. I picture her like, the secretary in a school, or like the one who runs the office. She's a cool head, but she's also got to manage Amy G pretty often.
Right.
And when she's managing Amy G, she cannot also logically think through a problem, organize, plan, be calm and respectful, and take time to talk through things, right?
Yeah.
So our kids have this experience. Well, Amy G freaks out and Franny's trying to calm it down. And as parents, we're standing over here saying, okay, let's talk about this. Let's work through this. Well, that's not a pattern that's going to work, right? But then as parents, we experience this ourselves, because our kids hit our buttons. Our Amy G flies up, and our Franny is trying to calm it down. Again, very similar to what happens to us in business, where if we know our emotions get triggered, we have to use certain tools to calm it down in order to be able to respond the way we want to, not the way she makes us. So that pattern is present in both parents and kids.
I love it. So when you talk about a dream team, like finding different resources, delegate your work to other people, not just for your business, but for your real life, for your daily life. I even think about, hiring someone to maybe clean your house for you, so you don't have to do all the cleaning, clean the toilet or whatever it is, right? And maybe even like order some food that you don't have to always cook and clean, and then taking care of your work that you are in the creative mode, and you have to pause it right there just to do some small stuff. I always say that, to my clients too, like if you can delegate your work for your personal life to someone else, and spend a little bit of money, like that's okay. Go find something that you enjoy doing it, you're good at it, and make pretty good money of it, right?
Yeah, I call it outsourcing, right? We do that with business a lot, but we don't do it, and not just the cooking and the cleaning, but you can also do this with parenting as well. I always say it's not quantity, it's quality time
Right.
with your children. So quality time with your children is not having cleaning the house and everything. Now if you're
Right.
teaching them some responsibility and you have a
Sure.
chores list, that's great. But that's not quality time. Neither is struggling to do remote learning with your children while you're trying to do your job because you think you have to. If you have the resources,
Right.
it's okay to outsource that educational component and hire a tutor or have somebody like that. If you don't have those resources, it would be great to pair with a dream team, right?
Mm.
Find another that you can kind of work on, maybe do it by day, but that
Right.
does not mean you're a bad parent. We have these we shoulds. We can
Right.
outsource things and juggle. We have to juggle just like you do in your business.
Yeah, break that belief that, like I'm not a good mom or dad, or, if I make a lot of money, that's mean I don't have time for my kids. Like that's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want your children to learn about cooking, and so you think every single night I must cook to show them how to do this, well, that's not the case. If you're stressed, if your Amy G is going to freak out the whole time and you won't let your kids participate because you don't want the mess because you'd have to clean it up, which happens to me all the time, right?
Yep.
Instead, pick one day. Pick one day, even out of the month, where you just do that together and you work on cooking together, but in a space where you can keep your Amy G calm, where you can enjoy your kids and your family. It's that quality time that you want, not the quantity time, right?
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Sarah. So tell us a little bit about your book. You just launching this book, and it is an international bestseller. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your book and how can we find it?
Yes. So the book's called Raising Brains, and I talk about this concept of mindful meddling to raise these happy, successful, connected kids. And the mindful meddling concept is really what the book is about, which is about a guide, a plan for raising your kids, but it is not a rules. It's not a set of rules, because if I
Mm.
gave you 10 rules, you try one of them and your kids would make you break one right away, right? So instead it's a guide, it's a mindful meddling, right? So we're going to help to guide our children without being directive and smothering to them, because it's important to build independent functioning in kids and in their brains. And again, this is about efficiency and effectiveness. And so the guides are the best way to do that. So in the book, I talk a lot about a plan and what that plan should look like. And then also just about really healthy brain habits. We want to teach our kids really young. It is about insight and understanding what's going on around you and how you're thinking and feeling. But there's a lot more to healthy brain habits. So we talk about good healthy brain foods and healthy brain habits like eating and sleeping and different things like that in the book as well. And then I do talk a little bit about different brains, right? Because I told you my son has a little bit of a different brain, but the different brain spectrum is a big variation. So there's a little bit in there too to help people apply these concepts to different kinds of brains.
Love it. And they can find it on Amazon, right?
Yes, they can find it on Amazon, or of course, they can always go to my website, which is brainbehaviorbridge.com. There's
Oh, I
tons of
love it.
information on there as well.
It's BBB.
Yes, exactly.
That's so cool. So, are there any exciting new project that you're working on right now, Dr. Sarah?
Yeah, so after the book, I realized that it was the application of these tools that people really wanted some more support with. So I now have a course, a little brain master parenting course. A lot of people are kind of asking about getting their masters in parenting in this efficient, effective way, right? Because we're busy people, busy moms, busy parents, and we really needed these tools really quickly and then help to apply them. So that's a neat course with some great content and then some premium coaching option as well to help you really apply it to your particular situation and your household and your dream team and all of those things. So there's that as well.
I love it. And again, like for our entrepreneur audience, we all can apply this to use in our daily life because, again, when our children they're happy and they feel satisfied and they feel that we support them the best we can perform well for our business as well.
Yeah, and we want to give as much to our business as we give to home and as much home as we do to our business. And there's this whole concept of not being able to have both, right?
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
It's
You
not.
can have both. You just need a plan, and you need to be able to watch all the balls that you're juggling and make sure you're attending well to each of them. And by having goals for your kids, you're really able to focus and be directive and maintain this quality time with them and capitalize on what I call teachable moments when they happen. So you can really start to grow their brains and grow them into these wonderful humans and get reconnected with
Yeah.
them in the way that you've hopefully gotten reconnected with yourself as you became an entrepreneur.
I like, this is before we end. Just want to share my experience a little bit. I know that as an entrepreneur, we are very creative. We are very, we have that self-discipline and the passion. That's why we don't go work for someone else and we work for ourselves, right? And the benefit is you can managing the time that you want when you want to work and what you want to do. So there was last week in the morning, my daughter, she is 7 years old, first grade, and she having a hard morning, and I said, all right, let's pack breakfast and go on a drive. And she's like, where are we going, mommy? And I said, well, it's okay. Let's go on a drive. So I took her to the park, drive to the park and just like sit down and have breakfast there. And she didn't even finish her homework the night before. So we sit down and do some homework and we listen to the birds and we hug the tree. And then she said, mommy, I'm late for school, right? And I said, yes, you are late, but you will go to school and that's okay. And I took her to school but she feel better. So I used to like, okay, you got to go to school on time, blah, 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 check the name, can't be absent, but not anymore. I rather have her feel good about it than just like forcing it.
Exactly. And if you had your plan together, you could have that as one of her goals. And you're saying, well, I want her to be able to know how to make herself feel happier again, or make herself feel better, or make sure that she has herself emotionally stable before she goes into her job, which is her school, right?
Yeah.
And so you're teaching her such wonderful strategies for being able to balance her world and her life. And when you have that down on paper and you see that for yourself too, you're back to feeling confident and comfortable as a mom. You don't have that mom guilt that we often have. Like you said, the reason you probably did this because that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to get them to school in time. But you know what? We've all learned over the pandemic, if there's one thing, it's that you don't know what direction life is going to go.
Right.
I've had this experience a number of times throughout my life. When I was trying to have children, I was pregnant with my first son, lost my first son within about an hour of his birth, got pregnant again with twins, and lost both of them about a few days apart. They both only lived an hour. So it was the first time that my life was going in one direction and then made this sharp left turn, right? And I think when that happens, like it did with everybody with COVID, everyone thought they were going in one direction, and then COVID kind of shut the world down. You realize that there's things that are more important than what you should do, right? And those shoulds don't always make you feel good. And that's really important to start to teach kids these emotional skills as much as we teach them academic skills. And so what you did for your daughter was probably one of the best things you could have done for raising her little brain, because she needed to learn how to do that. And she will likely never forget that, because it kind of shocked her a little bit, right? I'm late. I'm not supposed to be late, right? And that little conflict, we say conflict breeds change, right? So she had this little mental conflict with herself about it, but realized that there's some change that's needed. I need to be able to balance, and get myself centered again before I go into my job for the day. And that's a really valuable tool for her to learn.
Well, sometimes, we don't have to follow all the societal rules or parenting rules, and end up making ourselves feel guilty, right? And I saw that you hashtag mom guilt a lot, over all your content. So no need right, to beat ourselves up by trying to keep someone else's standard.
Yeah. And I learned this very honestly. I am not an inside the box kind of player. I don't think entrepreneurs in general really are. My mother used to joke with me that I never heard no, I heard not that way. And so
love it.
That was really my life. And so when I became a neuropsychologist, I was supposed to do testing and assessment for kids and see them in hospital settings. And very quickly, especially with what was going on in my life, I was like, well, that doesn't seem like what I want to do. I want to do this on my own because I want to really be able to help kids. And then wait a minute, you're supposed to do it in the hospital setting, but kids are in schools. just like we go back to work, they go back to school. So I wanted to learn more about schools and then more about parenting. And then I kind of got outside the box and was able to help each patient that came to me in the way that they needed to be helped, instead of the way insurance told me how, or the hospital settings that I had to do it. And that's where this really came from, is just this practical, how do we give me something I can grasp really quickly and really effectively balance my work life and my home life, and give as much to both settings.
So this is out of the topic a little bit, Dr. Sarah. Do you believe that all the kids that came to this earth, they like white and clean, like white cloth, beautiful, nice and clean, but we are, as an adult, are the one who painting all the color on them? Because there's some kids that wasn't nice, like the thing they say, the behavior, the attitude. So, and then some adults say, oh, she was born that way. She's very mean when she was the beginning, but isn't that true in your opinions?
This goes back to the age old, like, nature, nurture question. There's definitely a temperament, right? There's some biological temperament. And even we know this from in the medical science world as well, right? There's this concept of epigenetics, where you're predisposed to certain kinds of things, but you don't necessarily get cancer until you have a trigger. Something in the environment triggers it. But you're more predisposed to it, because somebody who could experience that same trigger wouldn't necessarily get cancer or something like that. And that's just one example. Epigenetics is a huge, really awesome, fun, interesting concept that I won't get into too much. But
sure.
I think that's kind of here what it is with parenting and with little brains. So yes, there's a temperament to it, but you get to shape the way that little brain is connected by the way you respond to that temperament and the way you reinforce it, because any kind of reinforcement or reward is going to increase those behaviors, and or punish it, which is going to stop behaviors, right? And the reason we don't love punishment is because it stops behavior, but doesn't start a new one.
Right.
It doesn't tell them what to do. It just tells them what not to do. And so I think that this is really, there's before the age of 5, kids are born with more neurons, more than twice the amount of neurons, which are the cells in your brain, that you're ever going to have in your whole life. They have more than we have now. And they go through this pruning process, we call it, where they start to get rid of things that they don't need and keep only the ones that they do need. So between 0 and 5 is the most learning you will ever have in your entire lifespan. So when it comes to this idea that you can shape a little brain, absolutely, especially during those young ages, because all they're doing is trying to connect neurons. It's a use or lose thing. The more experience and exposure they have, the more they keep those connections, and the ones that they're not using, they get rid of. And that sets the stage for your entire life. But that doesn't mean there's no growth or change after that. There's a lot of growth and change after that. And even as adults, we grow and change. We might not get new brain cells per se, but we can make connections and reconnections. That's how, when people get injured, we're able to help them recovery. So there's this constant ability to start to pull insight, right? Start to understand yourself and why you're thinking and feeling certain ways, and to intentionally make change from that. And if we can help our kids gain the skill of, what am I thinking and feeling? Let me look inside myself. Let me look at my glow and grow chart and see what goals I have for myself, where I'm really, really doing well and where I need to work. And they're constantly doing that for themselves. You are enabling this ability to grow their brains for a lifetime.
I thank you so much for sharing this. It is remind me, growing up, I heard adults around me say it and call me the girl with the broken brain, because when I was a year and a half, I fell from the second floor of my house, from the window, and blood came out everywhere, my head, my mouth, my nose, and my mom carried me to the hospital, and I was already like green and purple. So the doctor said, if I don't die, I probably gonna be very slow in school. And I was at the beginning, but there's something inside of me that I don't want to believe those adults. So I keep learning and I work harder. I have to work a lot harder than other people. And looking back now, like where I'm at, and the story that I told, it doesn't affect me at all.
Well, I would argue that affects you a lot, right?
Sure.
right? It changed you, and that motivation, that drive, that makes you a different brain now
Yeah.
than you were. And I think that's a great example of, it's not broken, it's different. This is why I call it different brains because they're in my book, because there's a resiliency that comes from a different brain. There's just a way that your brain learns to adapt to an environment. They make such special, unique adults. We want to stop that cookie cutter,
Yeah.
just send it off the line kind of thing. Those are not what we want anymore. People can Google any piece of information they want to know. We want to help kids understand how to think, how to put pieces of information together, what their unique contribution could be. I can't tell you how many kids with ADHD that I see in my practice that I say, I cannot wait till you get out of the box of school, because you are going to be phenomenal. Go work for a company or for yourself, right? That is just going to really love the creativity and the uniqueness at which you approach things. Because really in our education system right now, it's a lot about spitting back out what the rubric wants and saying the thing in this particular way. But, we should really be embracing the uniqueness of different brains. And, I find the people I'm drawn to the most as an adult are the ones who think differently and look at things differently and have a different perspective than me, because that's what makes things interesting. That's what your brain wants to hear.
So, entrepreneur, find the thing that working for you, for your life, and your children around you, and listen to Dr. Sarah, get her book, Rising Brain, and let's follow her and take advantage of all the study, all the research that she already had and had it available for all of us here. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah, for being my guest today. I'm so thankful for you and looking forward to invite you to come back again next time.
I would love it. Thanks so much for having me. It was great talk.
Thank you.